See you. Good. How are you? Are we all set? Online, thank you. We'll get started with our Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Apologies for the delays. We were waiting for some folks to arrive at our unusual early start time. Agenda adjustments, I don't have anything for this evening. Okay. Public comment. We invite the public to come speak. Not seeing any. Moving on to our old business. 3.1, vote to call public hearing and referendum to close Sabattis Primary School.
So moved. Second.
Thank you. So we moved that the vote entitled vote to call and approve the warrant and notice of election to call school closure referendum be approved in form presented to this meeting, and that a copy of said vote be included with the minutes of this meeting. So that has been distributed for you folks this evening. I don't know if you need a minute or 30 seconds or whatever to take a quick glance at it and we can have a discussion. And for a reminder, the vote would be, do you favor authorizing the school board of Regional School Unit 4 to close Sabattis Primary School for the referendum vote? And it would indicate that the additional cost of keeping the school open has been estimated by the school board of Regional School Unit number 4 to be $358,076.69. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Passes. Thank you. Okay. This evening we will work on our budget workshop. So, who is starting with our budget workshop? Is it me? Because I'm not ready.
I can jump in if you would.
Let me see, do we have that presentation? Just want to make sure we're all looking at it. Okay. Let me grab that presentation. That's the only bad thing about doing it electronically, right? Do I have the final? Or is it in the folder you shared, Sam?
In the folder.
All right. So everybody, we do have printed copies if you need them. Or you will be able to see it in the
Do you
folder.
see it, Matt? Did you find it in the folder?
I'm sorry, I'm looking through, which folder is it? The one at the top?
26, 25
Yeah,
budget workshop.
gotcha.
Yep.
Okay, so then you see the presentation listed.
I think it's at the bottom. Yeah.
It's at the bottom, okay. All right.
Alright. So our discussion points for this evening, we want to talk about our board goals that we talked about a few months ago. The article cost center 1, which is regular instruction, and then our budget drivers. So our board goals for fiscal year 26. This was a summary. Oh, November 20th. Seems like it was longer ago. So we captured, maintained smaller pre-K to 4 class sizes, investment in evidence-based curriculum, special ed ratios, behavioral interventionists, balance between our text tools or other instructional tools, invest in our buildings and the maintenance thereof. Instructional strategies coach, so not just math or reading, but expanding those options. Involve committees of the board and budget conversations relevant to their committee charge. Involve our community members earlier in the process, and that's what we were trying to accomplish with this budget workshop. So hopefully we can get this information out there sooner, and, you know, we have next week's workshop as well. So it's a little bit less formal type communication. And to generate a budget that overall community supports. I think that's, our biggest main goal has been all year. So, our cost center one, regular education staff. Do you want to go through this, Katie? Okay.
Yeah, so first, it's a bittersweet evening for me, as this will be the last budget I do in my career. So,
Make it a good one, right?
exactly. So be kind and gentle. No, it's okay. So I'm going to back up a little bit with the goals. So I
Okay.
appreciate you saying something because I want to be transparent on did we address the goals or not. Okay, so, and as Nicole said, this was individual thoughts. It really wasn't like the board did a full consensus on each of these. These were like what people kind of said, I'm thinking this, I'm thinking that, so it's more individual. You'll see we're gonna go over the class sizes, and so you can determine whether you think that's low enough or, you know, where we have not added staffing. We're using our current staffing, and so there have not been, where you will see grade 3 class sizes are at 20 average. If you did not find that to be acceptable, you would need to add a teacher. We did not do that, okay? Investment in evidence-based curriculum, we have not added additional curriculum. You'll see later that one curriculum, especially the elementary, was regulated classroom. And that's really to support what you say later with behavioral interventionists. This is a program that helps teachers in their classrooms work with students to support their need to monitor their regulation. So it's a program that is evidence-based. Teachers, we have teachers who have been trained to be trainers that have already been doing some PD in this from their background. And so this is to get them the materials they need. That will come up later in another cost center. Maintain special ed ratios. We have not added positions for special ed. We talked a lot about, because we are suggesting SPS close, it benefits when you have limited resources to best use your resources. So right now we have special ed resources being spread out among 3 elementary schools. With them being more consolidated and location-wise, there's more flexibility to using that staff. And more support for them, too. When you have challenging programs and so forth, you have more of your colleagues there to support you and give you suggestions and give you ideas. But there's been no added staffing there. Behavioral interventionists, we have not added behavioral interventionists. Balance between tech-based tools and other instructional tools. You'll see, we are gonna ask the principal to talk about their building budgets a little bit. So, you know, that's, their supply lines and so forth, support those instructional tools. And we did a lot of discussion around technology and what is the return on investment, what are our teachers asking for, what do our students need, and really kind of fine tune that. And that's going to come later when we do that cost center where technology is in student staff support. Investment in maintenance of buildings, that will come up when we do the maintenance budget area. We'll talk about what is in there, what's not in there. You know, we still have our capital improvement list. As we talked about the closing of SPS, we talked to you about how we're going to address some of those needs at the school. We've talked to you about creating capital improvement funds using unfund balance. So there's things we're trying to think of. There's SRF funds next year for you to apply to, which I would highly recommend, and I know Sam's already prepared to do that. So there's different buckets for that. Instructional strategies coach, we have not added an additional coach. We are staying with our current staffing with coaches. And our coaching positions come from Title I grants. So that wouldn't, those coaching positions, if we were to reduce any of those, don't impact general funds. That's in the Title I funds. Involve committees of the board. I think we have tried to, when a committee has met, like the CAI committee, they talked about technology, they talked about some of the curriculum things. Finance facilities, we've tried to bring up things that are gonna be, you're gonna hear about in the budget. So we tried to do some of that. Involving the community members, as you said, we tried to do, more workshops. We did early November to get things rolling. We already have our website going. So after tonight's meeting tomorrow, we'll be uploading all of our materials so that the public can have those. And then generate budget that the overall community supports. When you hear the principals, there was a lot of what is a need? What do you need to continue to do the programming that best meets students? And really talking to staff about that and what do we already have for materials? Because we already knew the budget's going to be up for taxpayers with things, going on with our salaries and our health insurance and stuff like that. So it's a modest budget, to say the least. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a big picture on the goals. But the board certainly can make decisions to do other things. This is our best foot forward in what we believe supports the students of RSU4. Here comes Diane. Diane, we just started kicking off. You're right on time. So Cost Center 1, regular education staff, just so people remember that Article 1 is the classroom. It's really focused on the classroom. And so when people say Tier 1, like, oh, what can we do to support Tier 1? They're talking about in that classroom. And so that's what we're going to be really diving in deep tonight about. Okay? And so in this cost center, you see classroom teachers, and you have unified arts, your art, music, PE teachers, you have the multilingual learners, staffing, gifted and talented, alternative ed teacher. Then the ed techs in this cost center support the general classrooms. Those are pre-K ed techs, we have a kindergarten ed tech, and we have a gifted and talented ed tech. And then substitutes for those programs, you'll see those listed in there. And then also it's the classroom supplies, instructional materials, textbooks and periodicals, the libraries, furniture needs for classrooms, field trips, the copier lease and maintenance, dues and fees, and travel reimbursement for those folks. Okay. What we're going to do tonight is we're going to give you overview with this presentation for the first half, and I see that going maybe another half an hour or so, and then for that first hour, and then Samantha's going to take us through the line-by-line items of that cost center, and that'll take the next hour, just so you can know what you're seeing, what you're reading, and ask questions or make suggestions and that, so forth. So the first one is class sizes, so you understand what the class sizes are. What is hard, and Samantha has an extra lift in this budget, is running two budgets, right? One with SPS open and one with it closed. Cost center is probably one of the easier ones because classrooms, we aren't reducing classrooms or gaining classrooms, right? We're taking classrooms and we're relocating them. So it's more about coding them differently, and she's going to explain that when we get to going line by line. But this one is really solid, and you need what you need in this cost center, you would need no matter whether it's open or closed, because it's the classrooms. All right, welcome, Christy.
Sorry, I'm late.
No, that's all right. You said you were going to be late.
I know, but I don't like to.
It's all good. So when you see it open, you can see the class sizes. Pre-K, that would be if we are capacity, right? This is This is at capacity. So each program can have 16 students in it, in the morning, in the afternoon. So we always say, here it would be at full capacity. This year it has not been at full capacity. The numbers are lower. But that doesn't mean that our kindergarten will be lower. You know, we have a lot of daycares and childcare that provide a pre-K program for our students. So it's not until we get into kindergarten screening and putting out the word, which we have already started to do, we won't know that. You know, what is the impact on kindergarten? Then our kindergarten, I put it 80 because I'm not going to use pre-K numbers because that's not really a true picture of what might be going on. And then first grade is our bubble. I have it at 93. I capture a moment in time. I'm not going to up this date every day. So it could be 90 today, it could be 91, you know. But we know grade 1 there is a bubble. It's coming through. And so, you know, we're staying at 5 teachers for kindergarten, first and second grade. So you can see the class averages there. Now also remember, because we were talking about this in district, we have students that are in self-contained programs. So this represents how many students are in that class against how many classroom teachers. It doesn't really tell a full story. A full story would be you're going into the classroom, what are they doing during language arts or English, reading time, math time, specialists. It's probably more the norm for specialists because all students go there. Now students that are in self-contained program often have support. So there's an additional person there to help support those students. So this is kind of just, you know, a way to make it apples to apples rather than confusing you and putting, well, this is a number of self-contained that are against this class. We can do that for you. Just want you to know we recognize and we work with our teachers. Yes, we know it says, okay, you're going to have 20 in your third grade class, but you're not going to have 20 all day long. It depends on what the needs are of the students. And so there's discussion at the grade level or in the team leaders or with the principal saying, okay, but remember, what is your reading groups going to look like? What is your writing class going to look like? Okay? So you can see Carrie Ricker has grade 3 and 4 here, and they discussed looking at the number of students in the self-contained class and where best to have the 5 teachers. So it is a flip this year, right? So there's been 5 teachers in the 3rd grade, so the 5 teachers are going to follow them to the 4th grade. And then the 4th teachers are going to the, okay, so they discussed that. And they made that determination based on looking all factors. How many students will be in that classroom for academics.
One of the current 3rd grade teachers will bump to 4th grade?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Diane?
I have a question. Are there just 7 classrooms at Libby Tozer?
Yes, because their pre-K is 2 teachers with 4 sessions.
So how are we going to put 10 classrooms at Libby Tozer?
Okay, so remember our maps up there? So the pre-K, 2 pre-K, you have 5 teachers to bring in.
Right.
Right? So you have 1 open kindergarten classroom that's open right now. And you have the 2 pre-K classroom.
Yeah.
And then you have the art and music, the art room. And then you have one of the special ed classrooms. Okay?
So that means there's no special ed classroom. There'll be,
No, right, there'll be 2. Right
Okay.
now, they use 1, 2, 3 classrooms, 4 classrooms, because they have the space.
okay,
So in talking with Justin and about programming, we talked about which classrooms would house those programs. And then we also talked about, you know, is art and music going to be in a cart or is it going to be on the stage? So they've got to work out who's going in what space. There's another classroom that's smaller, that's been an intervention classroom that could also be special ed that hasn't been used for that. So there are some spaces that we're using in a different way that will be used for these programs.
we're not closing the library, are we?
No,
Okay.
no, library's open. So, yeah, go back, remember, see the Cs?
Yeah.
And then see the SE, SE, SE. So these are good questions. Now they're gonna move around because we've been over I think we've been over since to make adjustments. But you can see this is here, there's a space here that can be utilized. Then you have the pre-K classrooms, then you have special ed. We haven't determined yet, these may switch around. So they've got to talk about, once they know everything and they sit down and say what makes sense to where things are gonna go, okay? But yes, this right now is being, these 3 rooms are the special ed rooms, okay? We wanna make sure they have their quiet space, okay? So we've had discussions on that. And then we have this space where we talked about having art and music, share that space. And then we still have the library, and we still have office space in the teachers' room.
Okay.
Okay? But good, it's good, I want you to ask those things because other people are gonna be asking them.
And art and music used to be in that space.
Yes, that's what I understand, that they've been
Yeah.
there, yeah. So, they can also, when the gym's not being used, they can set up a space there. I mean, there's different things that can be utilized. Is it gonna be snuggly? It's gonna be snuggly, yeah. And, as we put in for a major construction for this building, I'm gonna work to update that, so they understand we have filled this building now, okay? Right. Which should help that application. All right, good question. Any other questions? So then, so you can see the average class sizes with just in general terms. And then with it closing, really what we're doing is we're taking first grade going into Libby Tozier, we're taking pre-K going into Carrie Ricker, and we're moving second grade into Carrie Ricker, okay? So those class sizes don't change, it's just the number of classrooms, okay? And then you can see the average class sizes there. But some are gonna be high, some are gonna be low, they're gonna have to talk about how they're gonna use their resources. At the middle school and high school, you can see, and this is what the middle school is facing, that the lower class is coming through, recognizing when that first grade starts coming through, we're gonna go back to 5. I mean, you gotta be flexible here. This is also where we're taking that position, remember that position from 6th grade, because we're using that, we've moved that position down into Carrie Ricker. So if it closes, we plan to fund a dean. If it stays open, we'll have to decide what we do, okay? But that position, that 6th grade position went into Carrie Ricker, and Sam will show that to you when we get there. But you can see, I think RSU4 is used to 100 in each class. You can see it's lower now. You're running about 85.
With the exception of next year's 7th graders.
Right, and then the 7th grade, yeah, you can see how, right,
Yep.
the bubbles
Yep.
do make an impact. I mean, the freshman is a big class at the
Yeah.
high school.
They were big.
When you go to assemblies, the freshman class is dominating. And they're very loud too and boisterous. So,
You don't say.
got a lot of school spirit. So one of the things I was asked about, and last year we went over, is course numbers, right? And also, what else do we offer our students? Which is AP, dual, and college. So I'm gonna ask Mel to come up, because she put a lot of this together, and Marco, you can join her if you would like.
Absolutely.
So come on up, and she's gonna go over, you have courses, so she's gonna kind of explain, yeah, might as well sit, yeah.
How are you?
She's gonna explain, what does this mean? What does this offer in our program for our students? Why do you see low enrollment, high enrollment in certain areas? And then she's also gonna go over the dual enrollment. So does everybody have that? Which one are you gonna go over first?
I can go over the course numbers, the first link.
Yeah, and do you wanna?
So for those of you who are on the digital folder, these are the documents titled OHHS 2024-25 course numbers. There's a semester 1 and a semester 2. I'm assuming you'll go over semester 1 first.
Does everybody have semester 1 in front of them?
I'm
If you need
guessing
help-
I'm matching the numbers, so.
Diane, do you wanna help with
Look
bringing up
together.
your, okay, you've got it, Diane?
So if you have a paper copy, I
Got it.
resorted it by course number. and your sheet is sorted by teacher with the teacher name hidden.
So if it says F behind
Yeah,
it,
she,
the course
F-
number, that means fall?
Yes, it does. Yep.
okay.
So this is semester one, and so it is sorted now by course number.
Yeah.
So like, for example, it shows that there's 2 sections of Art 1 with an, advanced studio course mixed in with it. Like, some of the courses have 2 courses being taught at once, which is why some of them have a little bit wonky numbers. And it goes by department all the way through. So when you get to English, you'll see that there are 6 sections of freshman English, and they vary in numbers from 15 to 19 at the highest, those sections. So you can kind of parse them out by the number. 113 is the freshman course, so if you had questions about that. So if you go through the document, you'll see each course, how many sections of it are taught and what the numbers are in each one. And an example where in that semester 1, if you were to scroll down and look at line 78, I combined like Algebra 2 and DE, stands for dual enrollment. So in that class, there are 20 students. There may be 14 taking the dual enrollment. There may be 6 taking the regular Algebra 2, but they're co-taught in the same classroom by the same teacher. So rather than to have a separate line, last year I had a separate line for things. I consolidated it so you could see the courses that, as they were taught, like by period. And much is the same for semester 2 all the way through. So I don't know if, anyone has specific questions or to courses. I feel like the numbers, pretty much speak for themselves in the courses that are in here. And then the third tab on this document are courses that are in our program of studies that we offered. When we do course selection, we're doing course selection next week at the high school. So we offer, whatever is in our course catalog, and then based on the requests and who we have to teach them, we figure out what we're going to offer by department, and then these are the ones that didn't happen. Yes, Doug?
A low number of requests, do you have a numerical value? What is that? Is that 3 and less?
Yeah,
Or
we
4 or
don't
less?
like to run a course that has 5 or 6 or less. There are some times with like calculus, for example, this year. I had 4 kids who needed calculus. And so we had, we made an exception and needed to run that class because I didn't have another math opportunity for those students. But some of those others may have been just small enough not to make sense, or that perhaps the teacher was already teaching 6 other sections of something and there wasn't a way to fit it in.
Yeah, there's other variables.
Yep,
I
and
guess
some of
in
them
my
are-
mind, I just want to know
Yeah,
what.
some of
low
them,
numbers.
with the cuts in, a science teacher, that might have impacted it as well.
Okay.
Yep, yeah.
So you, if there's too low of numbers, let's say for calculus, do they have another avenue that they can pursue that course outside of?
Yeah, we've tried it in different ways. We did have a student this year taking a math class through virtual high school, and ended up dropping it. It didn't fit in their schedule, so they took a virtual high school class, and I think without the instruction, that's what becomes really
Right.
difficult. They don't have a teacher that they can necessarily go to that's familiar with the content and the lessons. So there are some students that find success that way. But you have to be the right kind of student to do a course like that independently.
Yeah.
And it's difficult in math. And when we get up in those higher numbers, pre-cal will have closer to, 20 kids a year that need to take it, but calculus is not going to have that type of numbers. It's just the nature of that subject area. Yes?
Are these courses that you entertain every year, that you offer and then see if the numbers are still low? Or do you
Yeah.
just not?
Any course that's in our program of studies, which when we met with CEAI a few weeks ago, they approved like any new courses and what was already in there. We offer those out. So on Monday, those students will have access to all the courses that we have in the catalog. And then from there, we start figuring out, what the numbers are, what we're gonna run.
So Mel,
Yeah.
if you have students that have problems with like Algebra 1 and really don't pass that class, are they carrying that over and we have to set up another class for them in like their junior year?
Generally, I think it depends on
Right.
to what extent did they fail it?
Right.
How much of the course did they pass? There's some circumstances where they come in and they're able to finish it in vacation school, in
Right,
summer
yeah.
school.
Course
Um,
recovery,
Exactly.
I get it.
There
Right.
are some instances where it's, you know, it is so far gone that our recommendation is that you're gonna repeat this course next year.
right,
I'd say that doesn't happen as
Right.
often as the recovery situations do. Kids,
Okay.
most of the time will come in.
I just didn't know if we were taking resources that, you know, for that extra class in, you know, the third year of
Yeah, yeah.
math.
I
to
think
finish.
there's sometimes a handful of kids that are in a class
Right.
because they're making up a semester that they might not
Okay,
have
so it's
passed
really not
along the way.
affecting class size that much?
No,
No,
Okay,
no.
it's a small number, yeah.
yeah, good.
And with math, you know, you could have an Algebra 1 class that has juniors in it that are
Right,
taking it for
sure.
the first time,
Right.
depending on what they came in.
Right.
Or you could have, you know, a freshman in it. It depends, they really come in at different places. And I think you know that.
Kristen, you go first. I have a very basic question. This is my first budget
Sure.
process, by the way. Did you say that this is the current enrollment, or this is choice slips that haven't, could sound like we're about to sign up for
This
choice
is
slips.
this year's current
Current,
enrollment. This
okay.
is based on semester 1 and semester 2 of this year. And next week, we start the process for them to pick their courses for next school year.
And when will we know those kind of numbers?
June.
Okay.
The master schedule is usually like finalized right when school is ending.
Okay.
And if you don't have enough kids, do you do you not have the class?
Yeah,
Which is kind of what that third tab is.
Okay.
You know, courses might not run because there might not have been enough kids that have questioned it. We've entertained like maybe a course being offered every other year, perhaps, and it's something we might need to do with some of our courses. It really just depends, and there's no rhyme or reason. Every year is different in what kids pick for courses and where their interests might be. And then, like Katie said, this freshman class is really big, so I anticipate the grade 10 level classes next year are going to have, you know, even elective-wise, they're going to have more requests. Just they're a large group compared to what we've had. Christy,
So-
yeah.
There's so many nuances that go into this that
I
I
know.
don't think that any of us understand. But when I look at the numbers,
Mhm.
as I'm pretending not to have my understanding hat on. Okay, so I'm looking at these numbers and I'm seeing seniors in high school have 8 kids in their art class, but my 6th grader has 21 kids in their class all the time. Or my pre-K kid or my 4th grader has 21. And like, how can we make sense of that? Because that's part of the disconnect of like,
So
we're talking small class sizes, but our youngest students have, on average, a higher number of students in their class versus our older students, which, if you think developmentally, probably would do better with more students in their class. So that's, I think that adds to the
It does, and I think, like, fine arts is a graduation requirement. So students can take any art class, any music class. There's a few in the technology department, the woodworking, welding, academic decathlon, film studies, theater. Those are courses they can choose from. So I think traditionally, like, our Art 1s and Art 2s tend to have higher numbers because many kids who aren't musically inclined or don't want to take a class down in the shop, that's what they're going to pick for their fine arts. The Art 3, 4 studio arts, I mean, they're open to, 16 to 18 kids. I don't know if you've seen the art room at the high school, but it's pretty small. And she
Yeah.
packs them in. She'll take as many as she can
Yeah.
fit, and she's pretty creative. But by the time they get to junior, senior year, they're competing with other electives. They have LRTC, they're taking, science classes, they're taking math classes, they might be taking psychology, sociology, or business classes. So it's not like I can just take, these are the number of kids. Like, I was talking to Marco on the way here. Like, you can say there's 100 fifth graders, we want classes of 20, we need 5 teachers. And it's you can do that. And at high school, it doesn't work that way. There's 8 periods that we work around, and so many different things that kids choose to take. And not every kid,
And they're exploring different
career
career
paths and
paths, yeah,
options.
exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And,
It's a
you
good
might have a
question, though.
student who's an AP math student, but not in English. And so
Right.
like someone said, well, you have this AP class the same time as this class, and there's only 8 periods in a day, and I have 10 AP classes. Something's going to overlap. So it is a puzzle, it is a game, trying to like figure it out and get the most we can for our students to have options. But, and it's the same like with the calculus and some of those electives as they get to their junior, senior year. Robbie?
Mel, do we still have the option of students going to outside college? I mean,
That's for next.
right? We do, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
For now.
Do you wanna go
Well,
to that,
that-
do you wanna go to that?
Yeah, we can, sure.
That section, then you
Yeah, yeah.
can talk about those challenges.
Yeah, so the AP dual enrollment, put together, the dual enrollment partnership. So those first courses that run from English to accounting, algebra 2, are our partnerships with Central Maine Community College, Thomas College, and the University of Maine at Fort Kent. So those classes are taught at Oak Hill High School by an Oak Hill High School teacher who's been vetted through their systems to teach this college class. There's no cost to the student. It's covered by the Maine Department of Education, like Christy just said, for now. So it just came out in the news the week before vacation that they're going to be putting a cap on
Credits.
the amount of credits that they're going to let students take through the aspirations program. So that, I imagine, will have some impact on this. Central Maine Community College is our newest partner as of this summer. We had a lot of our courses through Thomas initially, and we switched to Central Maine Community College. They've been really good about not billing our, like right now, students can take 12 credits a year, so, you know, they could have taken like 36 by the end of their high school career if they played it right. But some kids take like 15 in a year, and they've been really good about not billing or billing at a reduced rate or looking at like what was the last class the student registered for. Our contact's on vacation right now, but I'm anxious to see what he has to say to us at our next meeting and what impact that has. So for now, this, you know, there's no cost to the student or to the community for this. Yeah.
Do you foresee if they're capped to the amount of credits, that would cut down on the amount of classes for this that are basically?
It could possibly, yes. I think it really will depend on, because on top of these classes, many of our students, if we scroll, I'm kind of getting ahead, but many of our students, on page 2, we have 55 kids in semester 1, keep scrolling down. 55 students right now are taking taking advantage of a college class through their class at LRTC. So our kids at LRTC that are in Business Academy or are in firefighting or EMT are also doing dual enrollment classes as part of those programs. That eats into those credits. So it's going to be kind of a figuring out, like, are they doing 6 with them? Are they doing 12 with us?
So I guess just to spell it out, I like to be,
Yeah, it could.
basically if that cap, it's gonna require the RSU4 to probably need more faculty to cover the credits that aren't being covered outside of the school, is that?
I just think kids will have to be thoughtful in what they
Yeah.
choose, or families will have to figure out if they're gonna pay the reduced rate. You know, students can pay the tuition costs for that at a reduced rate,
Okay,
anything
so they
that
can
goes over
still
the,
go.
over the cap,
So,
yeah.
because
I'm
it's
just
our
trying to
teacher
see if
that's
it's gonna
teaching.
require
Right,
more
right.
from us. you know.
Because it's our teacher
It's our
that's teaching
teacher
it,
teaching.
Right.
It will
Yeah.
change it for them.
it may, but it might impact what they can take outside of it. Like
Yeah.
if they're taking 3 classes with me and 2 classes at LRTC,
We're gonna have to pick and choose.
something, yeah.
Yeah.
It will be, like,
That's gonna be a whole other,
dependent on who's gonna issue the
kind of
credit.
getting a little ahead of ourselves, but it is something to consider.
So they'll have to pick and choose if they don't want to pay more?
Right.
So if they decide to pay, they can still take what they
Yeah,
want?
yeah,
Okay.
Yes, exactly.
But we have to wait, like, that's a proposal that hasn't necessarily, you know, they're,
Sorry.
we don't
can
have all the
Yeah, we have
information.
sidebar, yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so these are the courses, the enrollment. The top of the page is the enrollment and dual enrollment. The middle of that first page is the enrollment in our advanced placement courses. And then students that are taking advantage of early college courses just on their own outside of school. I have a lot of kids taking like an intro to psychology right now through Central Maine Community College or the University of Maine Augusta. So you can see there's 18 students taking advantage semester 2. And then those that are taking advantage of partnerships through their LRTC program. And then the end of this is our enrollment in our LRTC programs, which includes roughly over the course of the year, I think we'll have had 7 sophomores do the explorations program over there, and the balance of these students are juniors and seniors. Yes.
Yeah, so the LRTC, why is there such a difference between enrollment for semester 1 and semester 2? Like 55 and 6?
I think most of their,
College course registration.
yeah, that's their early college courses that they're taking in partnership. So a lot of them, they enroll at the start of the year and it goes for the whole year.
Oh, for the, okay.
So
So
the
semester 1 is like a whole, I thought,
Yeah.
okay.
The whole year.
55 enrolled at the beginning. I just had students pick up 6 additional courses
Okay.
semester 2.
Mel, do you anticipate with the districts having to pick up the cost of LRTC, that the numbers might go down in different districts?
I don't know, because I think Katie had said that it was kind of like a fee for each school that was decided on at that meeting,
Yeah,
correct?
it's not how many are enrolled, it's how
It's a
many,
flat fee for each school.
it's how many slots you have.
Right,
So we already, it won't matter how much we paid, here's our allocation.
okay,
Right. And so we're committed to the percent of that allocation.
all right,
And we
So-
tend to go over,
yeah.
if we look at what
Right,
we get for season.
we're getting a deal right now.
You're a good trader, Mel.
We borrow
Right now.
allocation from other schools in
Correct.
Hatfield, right?
Yeah,
Right.
and they've paid for
Right
it,
here,
and
she
but we're
does- She
using
does a
it.
nice job with that.
I don't know how to play poker, but I can do this.
Now,
Yeah.
with the early college cap, have you noticed AP course enrollment when early college opened up? Did more kids do early college versus AP, and do you think there'll be more of a shift back to AP potentially?
When dual enrollment opened up, our AP numbers went down, for sure, definitely. I don't know the answer to the second part, because for me, a dual enrollment credit is almost more of a guarantee. If you do well in the course, you're going to walk away with 3 or 4 college credits, and that same student might not do as well on an AP test. They might not be a great test taker who's going to get a 3, 4, or a 5, but they can do the work to pass a college course and get the credit. So I feel like dual enrollment is the way a lot of our students are going and other communities are going. So that's just my, I guess,
Might be
my,
interesting to watch it play out.
yeah. But our numbers definitely were higher, but
Used
again,
to
we
be,
didn't
yeah.
have the dual enrollment that we have now. And the partnership with Central Maine Community College has been really powerful this year. It's given us a lot more offerings.
Do you want to highlight just the EOMFK course? Like, we're one of the only people in the
Yeah,
state.
Julie Bouchy is one of the only teachers in the state approved to teach the anatomy course. So our kids who take her course, get to college and can get right into anatomy too. And they do very well. So that's very unique to Oak Hill High School.
So can we go back to the list of low participation?
The other sheet,
Yeah,
yeah,
Course is not offered. Is that what you were
or
saying?
Right.
or like in semester 1 or 2, Rob?
right, or just the low numbers? So what are you saying that those, like music theory would be anything less than 5?
Generally speaking, yeah.
Yeah,
And some of these, like, we've been able to offer every other year.
yeah,
Like, if I get enough music theory students that I can offer it 1 year, if Gary knows he has a pool of kids that might be interested, we can try to get enough to say, we're not going to offer it this year, but if we were to offer it now, would you take it?
yeah,
And so we kind of have to look at that. Like the macroeconomics and microeconomics,
We did that
we
already.
flip-flop them
Yeah.
already. AP Physics, we have been offering the dual enrollment instead because more students have opted for the dual enrollment. There could be a year where I have more kids request AP and we go back to it. So it
Right.
just it depends on, it's different every year with what the kids want.
okay.
Is there any additional benefit to the AP versus the dual enrollment?
For some of the more selective colleges, like we had some students go to very selective colleges last year, and those colleges were looking for AP, definitely. So it depends. Like a Bates, Bowdoin, and Colby in the state of Maine aren't going to take a dual enrollment course, but they may take an AP course. It really depends on where kids are looking, and again, year to year, that's different
I was gonna
also.
say that.
Oh, yeah.
Nicole, there's no sound for the YouTube video.
Okay, no sound for the YouTube video.
Um,
Hold on, Doug.
We don't have mics.
No, we have them.
Oh, okay.
They're checking right now.
Thank you.
Sorry, Doug, just wait.
Somebody just tagged me on Facebook.
Well, that's good. We don't know unless we're told.
We got the thumbs up.
you saying there's no sound, we're good.
Okay.
Okay, we're back.
Yeah, I think some of the comments were the beginning and we just had the audio. Oh, we just.
When you saw us moving around,
We
yeah.
had to turn it on because you guys started the meeting.
Okay.
The, for college enrollment, for the AP to count, do they need a 3, a 4, and a 5, or a 5, right? Correct. Just, again, going to the test takers.
That's right.
And it
For
depends
people
on
who
the,
don't know.
it depends on the school. Like some schools require a 3, some might require a 5, but it
Yeah.
varies from school to school.
But at least a 3.
Yes.
So again, it kind of goes to the test taker
Yeah.
challenge. Okay.
We do well. I mean, historically speaking, we've had a lot of students, earn their credits, or earn 3, 4, or 5 on their
Yes,
tests.
100%.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not 100%, but
Yeah.
yes, you're right.
Agreed.
Gotta be careful.
Right.
Any other questions for me?
Yeah, Mel,
Yeah.
I'm looking, I think this is the, I don't know. It's the very last page in the fall
Sure.
listing,
Yeah?
and it says, below French 1, French 2, French 3. I noticed that the Latin numbers are staying pretty relatively high compared to the French classes, especially in 3 and 4. And I know the Latin, if you're going into law, you're going into medicine, you're going, you know what I mean? Those are pretty required courses.
I think the French 1 numbers are higher
Yeah.
than, usually we've done like 2 sections of French
Right.
1. And so the French 1 numbers have been higher, and I think there was some drop off in the French 2 and 3s, and there's been a staff change. I
Yeah.
don't know if that correlates with this, but I
Yeah.
have some,
Well, that's what I was thinking, because I know we had problems, getting,
yeah. So, I mean, Latin's been pretty consistent, but I think like our French 1 numbers are
Yeah.
pretty solid this
Yeah.
Yeah, I
year.
was gonna say, yeah.
And I think the French 3 and 4, my hope would be that maybe we get back to, right now they're separate, they've been combined at times.
right,
It'll vary kind of given what the 8th graders sign up for.
right, yeah.
So,
And they need
So
1
that's
year
what
of,
they don't
they
need,
don't need any form
Not for,
language, right?
Not for
graduation.
graduation.
Not for graduation,
For
right?
college.
For
For
college,
college
it's
they
two,
do.
two
For
years.
Two,
Yeah.
for a lot of 4-year colleges.
right,
They're
yeah,
going to want 2 years of the same foreign language.
right, yeah.
And that's why you see that drop off, because they're like, great.
Yeah, I've met
Yeah.
mine.
Yeah.
Unless I have a
And-
Some do.
And you
Yeah.
run into that with the 3s and 4s as well. Okay, I got into nursing at LRTC, so I
Right.
can't fit Latin because I also want to take chemistry, and
Right.
something's got to give as
Yeah.
well. So you run into that also.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good?
Thank you, guys.
Okay.
So the next section is about the building budgets. So this is, the principals have their lines for their building. And we're gonna dive deeper when we go line by line. But this is kind of an overview of what the building's budgeted for and where they stand. So I am gonna ask each of them kind of to talk about what the process was, what things maybe aren't in here, or things that they discussed with their staff in their decision-making on what ended up in the budget, okay? So why don't we bring two up at a time so they don't feel like they're out on the side? So how about Jan and Sheree come up and share with Libby Tozier and Sabatis Premier?
And as they're making their way up, just remember that like our detailed review tonight is on cost center 1, which is regular instruction. So you won't see guidance costs, you won't see library costs, health services, special ed. You won't see those things tonight because our detailed dive tonight is in cost center 1, which is regular instruction.
So Jan, talk to us about your budget process at Libby Tozier and things that you were talking with them about, things that maybe weren't included or things that were included.
So we started with the team leaders back in December, and then they worked with their teams. So pre-K team and the kindergarten team, UAs, they all met together and spent a lot of time just looking at what they already had and what they needed. So there's certain curriculum things, like for our OT program, we need the workbooks. We need new little sponges to wipe off the letters of the slate boards. We need a few new slate boards. So things were looked at about that. But teachers did a really great job of looking into their rooms and noticing what paper they were using and how much they could rely on some of our fundraisers. So like right now we have Caring for Classrooms going on, and we get a lot of donations through that, and teachers can go online and order what they need. If they need staplers and they need paper, they can get it. So they kept that in mind. There wasn't a lot of big things needed this year, so our budget pretty much stayed the same. We did have some copier lease payments. I think you'll see that on every school line that increased. But for the most part, we stayed pretty steady. There was one new table that was requested, so very few furniture needs. We've done some bigger book orders in the past few years, so we really felt good about our book collections. But there were a few series that were added. So overall, I think we came out in a very reasonable place. Teachers definitely had some wishes and big things that they were, would love. We'd love another kindergarten ed tech, if you have a bunch of extra money around, but really using what we have and looking forward to if Sabatis closes and what comes over. So really keeping that in mind too, that next year there is going to be some changeover and additional supplies coming, so looking to get through that and then see where that leads us the following year. So.
Thank you. Sheree?
I thought Sabatis did a really nice job. All the teachers came over together and we talked about what that would look like, their needs for if we stayed open versus if we closed, so they had both of those minds of thoughts when they were ordering different things. We split our budget into the guidance, health, library, office of the principal, and regular instruction. And people did very well trying to stay within their needs. Not exactly their wants, they did put a few wants, but definitely their needs. Things like Cynthia Morgan wanted some magnetic toys, had some local purchase money, different types of memberships, books and supplies. Only one teacher wanted to have a new table. If they went over to SBS, that could be a whiteboard table. Other than that, it was very similar to what Jan said, just supplies that they're already using that they want to order more of to do the same thing that they did this year. The librarian did want to order, an extra $5,000 of books, so we put that on hold. I know they wanted another guidance counselor and a social worker to be full-time, so they did have some personnel requests that we put in, but then took out. But otherwise, it was a very normal budget that mirrored last year's budget.
All right, thank you. Let's have Carrie Ricker and Michaela come up.
And as they're coming up, Jan did mention the copier lease payment, and she's right, you'll see that in this cost center. You'll see a copier lease maintenance line in each of the buildings, and that lease payment, this is the first year in 3 years that we'll have a lease payment because we stretched our old copiers as long as we could, and then we leveraged a down payment to reduce that lease payment over the next 5 years.
Okay. Carrie Ricker, Jenny.
So Jan and Sheree did a good job of explaining. We did a very similar kind of process at Carrie Ricker. We looked at what their needs were We have a lot of really, as you can see, it went down a little bit. We have some great bargain shopper teachers who want to go and hunt for sales over the summer. When Staples goes on sales, look at the Share Center. So they did a really good job of looking to see what's in their classroom and what they already have and what they need. Again, the handwriting books, the personal dictionary books that they get every year. They came together as a third grade team and a fourth grade team, and we were able to eliminate a lot of extras because they said, okay, what can we do for a whole third grade as far as pencils, as far as cards, things like that. We did have the lease rental that went up, and mostly they were asking for some special professional development that Katie had asked for, so more than stuff for their room. They were looking for some books for SEL curriculum and for some of their own professional development. Now, they did ask for another teacher and personnel, yes. That was one big ask, but that was it.
Okay, at Oak Hill Middle School, we start off with, and I think I told you guys this already and gave a shout out to Sam, the budget meeting with Sam with our whole staff was really great. The spreadsheets were emailed to each individual, and then we're able to go over everything in real time, so everyone kind of got like a little packet to work with. Then we met as team leaders, and team leaders were kind of like the go-to people for each team to talk about what are their needs as a grade level, but then also spokespersons for like curriculum, like content of what they need content-wise. So kind of did it in that area, and then just did check-ins along the way, and I had to tell one teacher to put in a lot more because one of the things that they requested was just so low that I was like, there's no way, like you're serving 400 students, well, a little less than that, but you need more, and not just one day of groceries, you need a little bit more of groceries. So that was a fun conversation to have, and I haven't had to have a conversation like that before, so that was nice. But we actually, so it says that we're 5,000 up, but like Sam said, our lease payment is $6,500, so we're actually $1,500 down. And I think that goes to the Share Center. The teachers all together did a really good job with getting just exactly what they need for their classrooms. Some people in the past haven't asked for a lot, and then they put in some wants of things that they want to do for different lessons and thought about that, so I thought that was great. But then other people, like we have people retiring and just did the basics, like they're giving a lot of their stuff. So with that too, I think that just made sense. And so I think overall, everyone did a really good job, and I'm proud of the budget that we're putting forward at Oak Hill Middle School. I think a lot of thought went into it, and just appreciation of working with what we have and then getting what we need to support our kids to give them the best education. So it wasn't necessarily, nitpicking every little thing, but like what can we do to enhance our lessons that we're already making. We're doing our scope and sequences. How can we enhance that learning to meet our kids' needs? Of course, we always want, more support, like personnel. It would be a perfect world to have 5 teachers at each grade level and have even smaller class sizes, and be able to split ELA classes, smaller groups, but we recognize that there are shifts in numbers from over time, and we have to follow suit.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Marco?
Sure.
And as Marco's coming up, there's a reference by a couple of principals to the Share Center. So it's a resource center that we pay a membership for, and then all of the employees within that building have access to that resource center to go get what they need that's been either donated or recycled or given to that center. So you'll notice that there's a difference in cost. So like the middle school doesn't qualify for a small school membership like Sabattis Primary, Libby Tozier, and Carrie Ricker. So if a school qualifies for that small school, it's like a $550 membership. If they don't qualify, then it's based on the number of staff and students that are in the school, and the membership goes up based on that formula. So if you'll notice later in the version where SPS is closed, it might seem like a redundancy that the share center's in there twice. It's parked in there twice because Carrie Ricker won't qualify any longer for a small school membership. So it's in there to buffer for having to pay a higher membership fee. So.
Marco?
Yeah, no worries, you could.
No, it's good.
Absolutely. So as far as process is concerned for the high school, it's very similar to the middle school. Sam was kind enough to come over and do a kickoff with us in regards to the leadership team. So we're working with department heads more than anything else in regards to collecting the information from department members. And really it's about needs more than anything else. What do you need to run your programming? I always like to put the caveat in that, it's always good to come in, at or below, where we were the year before. It sometimes works out, sometimes doesn't, depending on the needs. And this past budget, or the budget that we're looking at now, or let me finish with the process itself, but essentially what happens is department heads collect that information. That information goes between myself and our guidance assistant who will help put together the budget. So she and I work together to put all the numbers together, and then I go through it basically line by line and cut things. It's essentially it. If there are things that I don't think that we necessarily need, I'll go through and make recommendations for cuts. I go back to the department heads and let them know, here are my initial thoughts in regards to your budget. Let me know where you're at with it. And they're really good about it. I mean, they'll oftentimes put things in, just to see, will it come through or not? And we can have a conversation, and maybe it goes in or maybe it continues to be out. But it is pretty much back and forth, and then ultimately, I'm presenting that information to Sam and to Katie. There was a lot, from just even my perspective, that was asked for this past year from the high school. A lot of it had to do with furniture and some other like enrichment activities, residencies, things of that nature that we've had grants for in the past that have paid for it. But I cut those out just because of the significant cost that goes along with it. And then as far as like the high school budget is concerned, for this next year, we just really have some drivers. I hate to continue to say the copier lease, that's one of them. And then, I'm going to forget, there was one other piece that was an increase. Let me look. Hold on, everybody, just a second here.
Furniture.
Yeah, that's right. It was furniture. Thank you very much for that. I mean, somebody could have thrown that out earlier.
Sorry.
Very quietly, I said the furniture.
Yeah, a little louder next time, all right? That'd be helpful. Anyway, so yes, some furniture is one of the pieces. So classroom set of furniture is what we're looking at. And so there were some others that were asked for too, tables and desks and chairs and things of that nature that, we'll continue to work with what we have just because it's expensive. That stuff is not cheap.
Yeah.
So, and what we do get, I want to make sure that it's a quality so it lasts a while. The one other thing I want to make sure that you guys are aware of, we did have a donation. Gil Hinckley at the high school, he's one of our custodians. His daughter has, some connections with some office spaces that were being liquidated, and we were able to get some things at donation, which was fantastic. So it replaced some tables and chairs in our JMG classroom that were in the budget, and so we've been able to replace that at no cost. He's telling me that there may be more to come, and he's like, so what do you want me to get? I'm like, whatever you can get. Whatever it is, we'll take it. So my hope is that we can further reduce this if we're able to. So I just want to make sure that people are aware of that, we're working hard to even find ways to, get things in the building at no cost.
Okay. Any questions for the administrators? Yes.
Yeah, Marco, I know at the high school level, you have to buy like chemistry, biology, stuff that is probably more expensive than a regular science class in, middle school or elementary school.
Yeah, that's correct, Robbie. So the consumables, especially for, I would say science, And then your industrial technology,
Right,
you know, I
yeah.
mean, the price of lumber, the price of metal, that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
okay.
It's expensive.
Yeah, I just want to put that out there. to
Yeah,
make
yeah,
sure
oh,
that-
absolutely. But I mean, you know, you're not gonna keep fetal pigs around for
Right, yeah.
a long period of time, just
Right.
because it's not,
Yeah,
that's not a good idea, you know?
yeah, no.
Not advisable.
No.
Put them in the freezer, is that what somebody?
They are in the freezer.
All right, let's not talk about where they are, okay?
All right, thank you.
You're welcome,
Thank you
okay?
very much.
Five gallon buckets. There's no freezer.
So if I can just draw our attention to this slide, you know, the difference over FY '25 for the version that's been proposed is just under 23,000 for these discretionary lines. So I just want to, you know, point out the exceptional work of your administrative team, because the copier lease, all told, is over 30,000, right? So just a little bit of that copier lease belongs to the central office and the machines that are allocated here. So proportionally, you'll see that come up in cost center 6. But for the administrative team to really do their diligence this year and try to maintain or even reduce the budget, knowing that additional cost was going to be coming in for the next 5 years where we've been without it for a couple. I just think they've done a really good job, so I just want to give them a shout out. Kudos.
Sam, so what's the number? Do you have a number of copiers per building? Do you know?
It varies by
Yeah.
building because it varies the number of staff that are in the building.
Right,
Yeah,
okay. But it's more
You
than
have Doug and then Teresa.
okay. And
Doug and
two or
Oh,
three.
and
yes,
Yeah,
Gotta keep going.
I know somebody's gonna ask, because you're gonna post all of this online, right? So I figure I'm gonna ask so it can be answered now.
Sure.
And it seems like I should probably ask you instead of any particular building administrator.
I don't know what you're gonna ask, but you can go right for it.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, it's just mostly has to do with the slides.
Sure.
You have the SPS open slide up.
Correct.
The next slide is SPS closed.
Correct.
I just wanted to know why there was a 7,000 increase for Libby Tozier and a 20,000 increase for Kerry Ricker if and when Sabatis Primary closes.
So let's talk it as a whole first. So the next slide is the version of all of those lines with SPS closed, and you'll notice that the total is up a little bit. And I think it was Cherie that mentioned there were a couple of de minimis requests for teachers who are moving into new spaces based on the closure that asked for a couple of furniture pieces. So that drove that up just a little bit. It's not a lot, but a little bit. You know, and given that movement, we wanted to honor, you know, them setting up and preparing their space for the opening. So there's a small increase to those lines with the closed version. But you will notice on slide 14, which is the version with it closed, that Libby Tozier, Sabatis Primary, and Kerry Ricker are bolded because those are the schools that are impacted by the closure. So you'll see that Sabatis Primary is zeroed out, right? And then with the respective staff, their requests, like teacher by teacher, have been moved to those buildings, with the exception of like the paper order for the school, right? So we're assuming the same number of teachers will use relatively the same number of paper. So what was allocated to Sabatis Primary for a paper order is now split proportionally between the staff that are moving to Libby Tozier and to Kerry Ricker. But as far as specific teacher requests, those traveled with the teacher to where they would move if they stay in their current grade level and position.
So just to reiterate, it seems like a lot of that increase on those is just furniture and classroom setup fees or costs.
No.
Doug, see the 23,634?
It's just
See the
moved
23?
up and down.
That got split up to Libby Tozier and Kerry Ricker.
Yeah,
Because Sabatis Primary teachers, the money followed them. The
Yeah.
money followed the teachers.
right, because they're still
So-
gonna need class supplies, they're still
Oh,
gonna need.
right, exactly. So overall, it only went up slightly from open to close. Because it went up with the close because there are a couple furniture needs for teachers who are moving if it closed.
And this is
You
just.
following? Yeah, you're
center
getting,
one.
yeah, I knew,
Correct.
yeah, I knew.
Yeah, so Sabatis Primary had about 26.5,
Yeah.
and you basically divided 7 to Libby Tozier,
Correct.
20 to Kerry Ricker.
Yeah. There you
I just wanted
No,
to
you good, that's.
have all of us answer that
If you
together
were
before
wondering
it gets
it,
posted.
someone else
Yeah.
is gonna wonder it.
Exactly, okay, thank you.
And it's just cost center one, so
Yes,
there's
only
no
cost center
moving,
one.
there's no heat,
Correct.
there's, so I think that's an important piece too.
Yes.
Teresa?
Mine's more of a comment that I really appreciate what all the administrators and teachers have done to do more with less, and to see, this copier lease be more than they're saving so much, and thank them for really buckling down, and how hard it must have been recognizing that you guys had to do all of that to try and keep our budget down. So thank you for that.
Great team effort.
I was gonna comment as well, when you look at 2023, look at how high it was, and then we're lower than that. And you would think that it would go higher because things are more expensive, but, I mean, people are really doing a great job doing their budgets.
Yeah.
I know it's really difficult to do a budget.
Yeah, I think it's been a joint response to the call to look to see if there is anything that can be trimmed and to be lean,
Yeah, there were closets open, there were drawers open to say, what might be in these that we can redistribute.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, moving on. So this is kind of, I think it's just to reiterate, this slide is to reiterate, we're a people business, right? So most of our increase is gonna come from the people. A bulk of our people are in this cost center, okay? So you can see, and it's, again, purple is open, green is closed, but there's not gonna be a difference there because the staff is moving, all right? So, but you can see our salary is gonna be up $268,658 for the staff that are in there. And our insurance, as you remember, we have budgeted 15% increase for health insurance. We went up, so we're hopefully coming down instead of being down and have to come up. The band, and it's very frustrating, as you know, they don't put the band out until people are well into their budgets. So the band's not gonna come out until the end of March. Once we know the top, which we anticipate we're gonna be close to the top again, then we can make that adjustment. So I always like a
If
good.
we can make that adjustment.
Yeah, we're hoping we can, so we can come to you and say, guess what? We just reduced the budget, all right?
Take some money out.
So you can see though, overall for salary and health increases for this cost center alone is close to $800,000. Now, you know that's not 800,000 and it's real because there are accounts that are down and there are accounts that are up. But just to show you that a bulk of increases in this cost center are your salary and benefits. So it's just important, our people are the bulk of the budget because we are a people business and can't do it without them.
And the intent of this slide, it might seem superfluous where there's no change between SPS staying open and closed. For every cost center, we intend to show you this slide so that you know where the changes or reductions in staffing will be between SPS staying open and closed. So though this one doesn't show you any difference in cost center one, when we get to the cost centers that do have an impact, you'll see the difference there. Just to be consistent.
And Sam, does this salary figure include the new paid family medical leave act?
This is straight salary.
Straight salary?
Yeah, so no benefits included because then you're marrying health and salary. So health is a huge driver, we know that. Salary is a huge driver, and then the other benefits are sort of de minimis in comparison. So you'll see them in the detailed lines.
Okay.
But as far as the things that we know are pushing the budget up, it's straight what we're paying our people and what we're paying on their behalf for health insurance elective coverage.
Thank you.
So the final slide is just an overview of, this is like, I'm giving you a big picture up here. And we've done a big bulk of salary and health benefits for our drivers in cost center one, right? But you're gonna see other cost centers have drivers in them that are significant enough for us to mention. So just to get you a mindset of what are some of those things that did go in, because I went over things for your budget goals that didn't go in. Here are things that did go in that we felt were important and had to go in. So one is, we've talked about vacation school. We have to bring vacation school in. It's significantly less than we've been offering because we had those ESSER funds, the ARP funds. So we're running our summer school on almost close to $180,000 annually, okay? We're budgeting 57,000. All right, so it's gonna be a scaled back. However, we're still looking at buckets like grants. Title I sometimes has reallocation of funds. But I can tell you, we did it through ARP, so did everybody. So it's gonna be highly competitive for those monies. Because everybody's in the same boat. They're gonna be saying the same things we're saying at every budget meeting. Summer school either, has to be minimal, unless we qualify and we get the grant, okay?
There was actually a webinar today about the summer reallocation for title funds, and it was very well attended. Lots
Yeah,
of people on that looking to get information about, the new restrictions, what is the, lots of questions in the chat, how much money, when will we know, and all those types of things. So right now, but keep in mind, what you're seeing for these figures here are increases. So we do have a modest amount that's in this year's budget for vacation and summer school. So this is on top of, so what's actually in the budget is closer to like 75, 76 for vacation, summer school, and ESY, which is our special ed summer school programming. So that's the increase over the current budget year. Yeah.
Where were we at before ARP funds and the pandemic?
That's a great question. I can get you the figures for that, but I can tell you it was definitely a scaled back version of what we've offered. So when COVID hit and we had those monies to access for summer school, that's when Camp Rise was birthed, which is, a 2-week offering at the high school, 2-week offering for our, or 2-week offering for our younger students. Transportation provided, food service available, that type of thing. So it definitely was a more robust option. As far as the numbers, I can get you the numbers for what we have spent in years past.
And we've heard in the past that parents paid to participate. We didn't offer transportation. So we did include in the figures transportation and food, and we're not charging folks. We really talked that through, and I at this time, we believe we need it in here. If it gets to a crucial point that you say you're gonna have to make significant cuts, you may have to say parents are gonna have to transport and they're gonna have to pay to participate. But I think right now, if we believe in it, it's an intervention for our students and help support, we need to budget for it at this point, okay?
Is that the same program like the little kids do in the summer?
Different from Camp Rise.
Camp 44.
Camp 44, sorry, Camp 44, yeah. Camp 44 has their own program.
Yeah, we're the fiscal agent for Camp 44 and before and after care, but it is a distinct entity.
Yeah.
It operates separately.
And where does that money go?
It passes through our, so we manage the fiscal side of it, but it passes through our coffers, so we don't see any benefit from that. It's basically the
Pays for
director.
itself.
Yeah, the director tries to create a budget and it provides staffing that it balances. So what she's charging people for that childcare option balances out with her expenses.
Families do pay for that.
Correct.
Yeah, families.
Yeah, correct.
Do we have success with the summer vacation school where if they enroll, they attend, they see it through, and they complete?
That's not my area of expertise, but I think it's a great question.
Yeah, I would say yes, Nicole. It's a huge benefit for students to recover credits. Mel was saying this a little earlier in regards to the numbers. And if juniors were in Algebra 1 or wherever they might be, I mean, those are the credit recovery options that we have, vacation school and summer school. So if a student, it has a few assignments or a few summative assessments that they need to take care of, they can come to summer school and take care of it and recover those credits so that they can then be on track or get back on track when it comes to graduation. So it is a benefit for us.
And at the other levels, the other programs too. Justin has done a really great job of trying to be clever with maximizing his local entitlement fund. So anytime we can pay for staff in the general fund, which would be our extended school year services for special ed, then we're not paying a higher rate for their retirement benefit that we contribute to. So he's been clever in trying to move stuff in and out, like we're gonna pay for ESY in the general fund budget, even though it wasn't there before, but any increases to special ed related services we'll try to leverage with the grant to try to free up more grant money and to be a better steward of those funds. And I think Shelley would probably say too, I've heard her talk at length about for the younger students, having a jump start for your students who are at risk and being able to provide some kind of kickoff for their school year at the beginning of the school year before, or at the end of the summer. I think you would say, I don't want to speak for you, that's kind of statistically
I think
approach.
it's harder to have a tangible result with your elementary students than it is with high school, right? Because they earn credit or they don't. One of the challenges for striving readers and math students in elementary school is summer slide, which is when they go backwards. So lots of times what you see for results is more that they don't slide back rather than they come in ahead of where they left. Do you know what I mean? So it's harder to measure. It's much easier to measure the impact of high school. Yeah.
I mean, I'll give you an example. We've had, last summer, we had 3 weeks planned, and we didn't go the third week because attendance was low.
Yeah.
So I think I think people get gung, it depends on the weather, right? So parents are, we're gonna sign you up because you're gonna go, and then, well, we're gonna pull you out, now we're going to the beach because, or whatever it is, or, so we planned for 3 and we only went 2. And so I think that's why we're saying we're gonna try for 2 and do it in August this year as get ready for the school year. Rather than you do it in July and then it doesn't make the same impact. So I think we're gonna have to watch that for sure. Yeah.
Has the district considered 21st century funds potentially? Because that could pay for summer
We haven't
programming.
explored that grant since we came out of it, I don't think
Yeah.
we could.
It might be.
We did, yeah, it would be a huge lift to do the grant, because, yes. And the turnaround, when I heard about it and turned around, that's something for next year.
Yeah.
Because I don't think we could do it this year.
Yeah, the RFA.
Yeah, it would have to be,
April, let's do April.
yeah, and how many points we would get in qualifying, because our free and reduced is not as high as it could be to qualify for those funds. So yeah, I read through it, I even reached out, somebody wrote and said we could help you with grant writing, I think they get a portion of it, and.
Well, I was on the review team, so
Yeah.
if you need
Yeah,
help
so-
with the rubric, let me know.
Yeah, so we definitely talked about it, Jim Palmer, that he told me he started here doing the first, so he would definitely be a resource.
Because you can have an elementary, a middle school program, and a high school program.
Exactly.
So there's 3 different things that could be done.
Yeah, definitely should be on the.
Can you explain the difference in salary and health insurance
Yeah,
between
absolutely.
Sabatis
Yep.
opening and closing?
Yep, so on this slide, right, your purple is if, with the version of the budget where Sabatis primary stays open, if the April 8th referendum does not pass. And then green is with it closed, right? So we did talk about in our December workshop for the SPS closure, having some positions that would be reduced with the closure of that building. So the difference between those 2 bands reflect the reductions in those positions primarily, with the exception of food service, because food service is not covered in the general fund. It sits in Fund 2930, which we'll review in our 3rd workshop. So you won't see those reductions here, but you will see the other positions that we've talked about. So that impacts like the custodial staff, our health services, now that we would be down to 4 buildings, an IT technician, and then we would restructure the administrative staff so that we wouldn't have a teaching stipend for Libby Tozier anymore, it would be a principal there. So those reductions are reflected in the salary piece, and then the attached benefits to those positions are reflected in the health insurance.
So I know this is kind of off track, but are we getting any savings at all from like property liability insurance by closing Sabatis?
A little bit.
Yeah,
A
okay.
little bit. Yeah, I didn't consider it a driver,
Right,
but a
yeah.
little bit. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there's definitely some operational savings, I would say, from that, and we'll see that when we get to that cost center
Okay.
detail. Yep.
Okay, so the other budget drivers, so you saw the salary and health insurance. We've already kind of discussed. And remember, this slide is all cost centers, not just cost center 1. That's why you're seeing things in here that we haven't talked about, okay? And then the out-of-district placements service, you'll see that in cost center 2, which will be next week, which is special ed. And so that again is a driver, because we've increased from 19 out-of-district placements to 20. And with the seed money, you've heard that word seed, you have to invest and put money aside for those services that those students receive in those out-of-district placements for OT, PT, speech and language. So those have been increased, and so that's why the budget. And Justin will be talking more about all of this at his, when he has his cost center come up next week. LRTC you already know about, because we discussed it, and you knew how much that was going up. Technology, we discussed this, I think it came up at your curriculum meetings as well, which is we had a lot of funding in the ARP, so we're looking at that. So you'll see when Norma Jean comes up for her cost center around what have we done for adjustments on technology, what are the drivers in there that are causing, like IXL is in there, and that's an intervention software that we'll be putting forward. There's some phone system replacements we've discussed. So there are different parts of the technology budget that is going up. But you'll get more details on that. The transportation, same thing as looking at actuals against what was budgeted last year with budget reductions. As you know, when we're doing budget reductions, we're looking over everything, we kind of roll the dice, right? We say, okay, maybe we won't need as much repair, or the cost of repairs won't go up, or, you know, so we had to shift to where our repairs were being done. That has caused an increase. It was funny, Sheena today said, I'm becoming a warehouse for things, because she's constantly looking on how to save money on wipers and, I don't know, what she said today? She said something to me, I said, I have no idea what you're talking about. Like propane, what was it, gas, what did you say today?
DEF.
Yeah, DEF.
Yeah.
DEF, right. I said, DEF, yeah. So, you know, she's always online going, can I get a light bulb cheaper somewhere else? So things are now being delivered. So she's got boxes going. But that's to try to help this year's budget and planning for next year. The other big one is our school resource officer budget. If, as I brought this up before, we will have to almost double, because we budget $70,000. It's going to cost close to $142,000, because going with the county is a year-round position. We went to the amount they quoted us. If they don't hire someone till, you know, September 1, it'll be prorated. We will have a savings there, but we don't know. We don't know if they have somebody they think will take that position. But and they know that they're going to wait to see you approve a budget, and then we'll move forward with that. Okay, so those are the big drivers.
What would the SRO's summer look like? Will they be here at the schools, in the buildings during?
A lot of the times they take vacation too, when it's time for them to have vacation time, was one. Two, they can do different programs, like when the high school's doing their summer school, they could do a program there. They can work on our emergency plans. They could be setting up reunification plans. So they're working for us on things we need.
Okay.
They can be going through buildings for safety checks. Yeah.
Preseason sports stuff, I would imagine.
Preseason, yeah, they could do stuff like that. Sometimes they've done, what I've heard is they've done some like internship, like kids that are interested in law enforcement. Sometimes they can have little things going on for them, and other districts have come up with different ideas on how to use their expertise in the summer. And it also is encouraged to take their vacation, so they're not away from schools. But that's a good question. So that's the big overview. So Sam's gonna take you through Sabatis being open, because really that says everything, and then you know when it closes, things will go to Carrie Ricker or Libby Tozier.
Because it's not gonna change the bottom line.
No.
For this cost center.
For this cost center. Yeah, smidge. To that, what do we say, like $1,500?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'll give you a moment to locate the document, so if you're working
Am I doing this
digitally.
correct?
I was gonna.
Oh, yeah, if
I
you
was
wanna
gonna
stretch,
say,
yeah,
yes.
sure.
About to
So we
say
have
5
about,
minutes
so we have
stretch.
about an hour, right? Like, we're thinking.
We think, we've done it, we did a practice. We think we can do it in about 40 minutes.
Okay, so
30 to 40 minutes. So
Let's
if people
take
want to
a-
grab a snack, yeah.
let's take a few minutes.
Because
Bio
we
break.
kind of highlighted it. 3, 2, 1.
Okay.
We're on.
So we're gonna go ahead and continue, and folks may
So everybody
join us.
has their SPS open. All right, here we go.
All right, so this is your detailed budget report. And what can be difficult about these reports is they're codified, right? So all of the codes you can get lost in really quickly. So I'm gonna try my best to take some time with the Carrie Ricker, which is the first building that comes up, to make sure we understand the structure of the report, and you feel comfortable asking good questions. And then we'll go through the other schools probably a little bit speedier. So remember, this is with Savannah's Primary Open. So if we're looking at page 1, and looking at lines number 1 through 19, those are the salary and benefit lines associated with your regular instruction staff at Carrie Ricker. Okay, so we know it's Carrie Ricker because the codes end in 020, and we know it's regular instruction. So if you look at the first line, that's your salary line, so that's all of your teachers that are at Carrie Ricker. So we looked at the number of teachers there as 9, right? And then we talked about the position that was moving from the middle school to the high school, taking that to 10 full-time equivalents. And then currently, your itinerant teachers, art, PE, and music are split between 3 different buildings. So a third of each of those makes up your final FTE out of the 11 full-time equivalent staff, okay? So going across the page, you'll see that we have included actuals versus budget for the last 2 completed fiscal years. So the first 2 columns are FY23, budget to actual, and then it's FY24, budget to actual. We don't include this current fiscal year for actuals because we're in February, so we're 8 months through a 12-month fiscal year, but we did include the budget from last year. Your final 3 columns are what's proposed in this version of the budget, this FY26 version of the budget, the difference over last year, so it could be a decrease, could be an increase. If it's a decrease, it's noted with parentheses, and then the percent difference over last year's budget as well. Okay, so feel free to stop me as we go through these lines if you have any questions, but in each program or school, we'll look at salary and benefits, and then we'll look at the discretionary lines that your building principals reviewed. Robin?
Sam, just to ask a question,
Yep.
so we can get put out there.
Sure.
You're looking at an increase of 4.43%, right?
Yep.
So that's accumulated through the whole staff, am I right?
The regular instruction
The
staff at
regular
Carrie
instruction
Ricker.
staff at Carrie Ricker,
Yep.
so there are some different parts of the scale that they're on, they're
Yep.
getting different,
Yep.
so it's,
You could have different staff this year
Right.
than we had last year,
Right.
and that makes a
Okay.
change to what the budget amounts would be.
Right.
Yep, for sure. Yep, good question.
okay.
Right, so going down to line 3, we took a hard look, myself and the payroll specialist, Jessica Loon, we really looked at what we have in the current budget for substitute salary, what we have budgeted for this year. And as we went through all of those lines cumulatively, we tried to project what lines will be sufficiently funded for next year and what lines need to be adjusted. So Carrie Ricker, we felt comfortable with where we were at with last year's budgets. There's no increase to the salary line there for subs. Line 4, you'll see in every school building as well, is the school-based stipend line. So that salary for stipends like team leaders, teacher mentors, certification reps. You'll see those in each building.
Could you give us like a number of how many, like team leader stipends, mentor stipends, like, so that 15,262, like how many people are accessing that?
Right this moment, I can't, but I'm
No,
happy to
but
get that
like,
for you.
I think that's something that.
Usually every grade has a team leader.
Yeah.
And then the mentors is based on the new teachers.
Right.
So if there's a new teacher, like Carrie Ricker had
There's a lot of new
significantly,
teachers.
right,
Yeah.
so they had more mentors.
And will they stay with them through their entire first year, or is the mentor, is it over a course of time?
Yeah.
Shelley said they're.
Yeah, they're required for 1 year, and I think optional for the second year at the discretion of the principal if the person needs that continued support, but generally 1 year.
Okay.
Yeah, and certification.
3 team leaders and then a lot of mentors, since you have a lot of stuff.
Yeah, because there's special ed team leader, UA team leader, could possibly, depends.
They're all to give combined.
Yeah.
And mentors are required the first year.
Yes.
That's a good
Yes.
piece of information.
Yeah, it's part of the same statute as evaluation. And they're now required for any teacher new to the district.
Oh.
It used to be attached to certification, so it was required for teachers who had an initial certificate. And then they moved that out of certification and into evaluation. And so now it's like anyone who's new to a district, regardless of how much experience they have.
Just a question on the substitute teachers, because I think that was something that was increased quite a bit last year.
Yep, we
per
went up in
request.
rate.
And so was that, do you feel like that was increased to an appropriate level, or, and everyone's good?
Yeah, we did a pretty deep dive into prior years, where we're at, 7 months of when we did the review, 7 months of the way through the fiscal year. We did some projections and adjusted lines that we felt needed to go up and kept lines the same where we felt like they were sufficient, and there might be a couple even that were reduced because they were over budgeted.
Yeah, and I know in some prior years, there was, like even the principals were covering classrooms and things, and so we have enough subs that we don't have to stretch so many people thin, or do you think
I
that?
wouldn't say that. I think there's probably always room to have more subs, and I'm looking at nods
definitely.
over here that it would be nice to have more subs in the buildings for sure.
Yeah, so we do pay teachers to cover, like the high school, middle school, when they have a prep period, teachers go in and sub. So a class at the middle school, high school could have 3 different teachers throughout the year, throughout the day, depending on who's covering. And then they put in a slip and we pay them to cover. So we're still
And
doing
they're
that.
billed to that line.
Yeah.
So like if we did have a substitute, it wouldn't be in addition to that. If it relieved someone who was covering, it would supplant the money that's being paid for them for loss of prep.
And did we do a substitute class through adult ed?
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
yeah, and was there a good turnout for that? And
They have to take the class.
Yeah, so it's kind of like as a new sub that is interested comes forward, then they're referred to Jim for the substitute class, and then they're added as a substitute once they've successfully completed it.
do we know how many substitute teacher?
Yeah, we've had 15 go through this year.
That's great.
Is it a requirement they have to come teach here? Just asking.
I was just curious, do we have any subs that are hired as full-time subs? Long, well, you know what I mean?
Yes, what we have when a school may be struggling with coverage, especially in special education classes, that we've given permission for the principal to post it every day and to fill it. So they may have somebody that says, I can do it for the next 2 weeks, and we say, go ahead. That's somebody else.
What I was thinking is, do we have anybody that's just hired as a full-time sub?
No.
That might be a way to go.
Well, what we've been doing, I mean, you have to watch that, are they an employee then?
Yeah.
All right, so sometimes you can do permanent subs, and people did a lot of that during COVID because there was funding for that. They would do the permanent sub. But we have been trying to be very flexible that if there's a need and they have somebody who can do it, we try to definitely support the staff as best we can. And they will push, obviously, if they have an opening in the building that they can't fill, we'll put a sub in that until they can find. So if somebody doesn't qualify for an Ed Tech 3, because they may have their high school diploma or whatever, they go in as a sub to do the position. So we really, the principals do an excellent job advocating, like I need extra support. I have this person, would you allow that? Can I move this person here? Can I, so, and of course, when they have somebody really good that they want to keep on.
That's what I'm saying. When you
Exactly.
find somebody really.
So we really try to do that as best we can, yeah. Good questions, yeah.
If they're covering special ed, does it come out of this cost center as a sub?
No.
No, it would be a special ed teaching sub.
You'll see those
Okay, so there's
sublines
a
when we get to
different, in a
cost center
different
too.
cost center,
Yep.
okay.
Yep.
So looking at line 5, you'll see the same note for every health insurance line. So the fluctuations that you'll see in those health insurance lines have to do with two things. The changes in elective coverage for staff members, so you'll see that this line has actually gone down compared to last year's budget, but then you'll also see that the premiums as a whole, we've increased by 15%, again anticipating a wide range of that band and us being at the top of it based on our quarterly medical loss ratios that we receive from Anthem. The remainder of the lines from 6 to 19 are other personnel related, so you have your FICA, your Maine State Retirement, unemployment, workers' comp. You'll also see line 16, you'll see PFML, we talked about this last year, so that was implemented and started January 1 this year for applicable employees, right? So the way that the statute is written is that every time one of our contracts is up and renegotiated, another pool of our employees becomes eligible to contribute to that fund, and we become responsible for the employer contribution. So this year you will see those PFML lines for our at-will employees, like substitutes, people who are on annual contracts that are not in collective bargaining agreements, our support staff, and our administrators, our school-based administrators. Okay, and then in future years you'll see professional staff and the professional assistance group as well. And we're also paying for a full year of the employer contribution rather than a half of a year, because it didn't start at the beginning of last year, it started January 1, so we only budgeted for a half of a percent last year for applicable employees. Okay. From lines 20 down to 28, those are the Carey Ricker regular instruction discretionary lines that your building principals just reviewed with you, okay? So you'll note line 22, that's the copier lease maintenance line that we've discussed at length today. So in prior years, the last 2 years, we've only paid for the maintenance portion of that agreement. So in all of those building-based lines, the lease payment has been added into that. So you can see that $4,000 increase for Carey Ricker. And the building principals did a great job speaking to, the specifics of these lines. So I'm happy to talk with you about any. I did just want to point out, though, you will see a consistent theme across this cost center. This year, we decided to take professional development funds and centralize them under improvement of instruction. So where a teacher might request for a conference or, to attend a training, instead of those being buried within these lines and going through the principal directly, they are going to be going through the central office, and Shelley will be playing a really great role of kind of making sure there's an equitable approach to who gets to attend, who gets to go to conferences. So what has been requested, we've made a really good faith effort to put in that improvement of instruction line, and she'll be responsible for working with the building administrators and the teacher requests that come through to dole out those funds as equitably as she can. And with a nod to staff who are in need of certification, renewal credits, and fill in any gap if I've left something out. But you'll see that come up in Cost Center 5. Yeah.
On line 25, books and periodicals, can you explain, are those like classroom workbooks?
Yeah, so I believe.
And it also says like books for classroom libraries. Now, are we talking like 25 of the same book?
Do you want to speak to that, Jenny? Because that was your line.
Yeah, sure. So these are some of the teachers that had retired and left last year, had their own personal classroom libraries that they took with them. And so some of the classroom libraries were lacking. So we have been kind of borrowing from other teachers, but we are looking, especially for one classroom, to kind of bulk back up their classroom library. And this would be 3 or 4 of the same book to work in small groups.
Okay.
And the other one was teachers requesting special books to work on, like how do I share better, things like that. That's what they meant by SEL books.
Okay.
We might want to spell it out more than saying SEL.
Okay.
Because I think that could trigger folks thinking that they know what it means, and I think the more explicit we can be, the better.
Okay.
Social emotional learning books.
Social emotional learning books, yes, because it's more on, how do I share, how do we get along with my friends, and
which is different than how the media portrays SEL right now. So I think if we can be explicit, that would be awesome.
I'm just saying, because with the amount of money that we put in technology, people wonder, every time we see like a big buy of books, you know, for libraries and stuff like that. So I just wanted to explain it out, that's all.
No, I appreciated that, and there was a big ask for the library, and this would be different. This would be
Yeah,
for
right.
classroom libraries, for teachers to do guided reading,
Right.
and not to be on technology, because again, third and fourth grade,
Sure.
it's kind of hard to
Yeah,
have them focused when they're on technology.
okay, thank
And
you.
this would stay in the classroom even if
These
the
would stay
teacher
in the
leaves.
classroom, they would not be leaving.
Right,
So
yeah.
even if the teacher left, this would stay with the grade.
Okay,
And if you look at line 24 above, these teachers have done a great job of reducing their supply requests to offset that increase
Yeah.
for the books and read hours.
I was just curious that why do we have to stay with Anthem for insurance?
I was gonna ask that, too.
Yeah, we are a part of the benefits trust, yep.
yeah.
So what does that
mean?
Yeah, thank you.
I believe, don't quote me on this, it's written into our contracts that we're part of.
It's the Maine Teachers Association.
Yeah,
Yes.
and so they negotiate our health insurance terms on our behalf.
Yeah.
But in my opinion, our increases are less about Anthem and more about COVID. That there is a huge, like after COVID, the delayed treatments and a lot of treatments that have been happening that weren't happening during COVID have really ticked up, like the health insurance claims overall. And compared to our peers in recent years, we haven't been as healthy, and that puts us at the top of that band for the health insurance.
In order, to give you some background, in order to go with another insurance group, we would have to negotiate that part out. It's not like we can't just put bids out and take the lowest bid for insurance. We, because they're negotiated contracts, and the contract is all teachers in the state of Maine are with Blue Cross Blue Shield. Right?
That's in the or they have health insurance.
You can, I mean, I once was involved in exploring this.
Yeah.
And especially when it kept going up and up and up, which is, I think, what forced MEA Trust to bring down the rates significantly. Because there was a group of districts talking about leaving. Yeah, and so there was a lot of discussion on that. And when Anthem felt the pressure that people are gonna start going elsewhere, they brought it way down. So, because they have funds to offset costs, depending on where their threshold is. But it benefits us as well because the healthy districts help the other districts that may be not as healthy, really. So that's why the bands fluctuate so much, is because as people bring in their experience, the medical, then it determines it. But yes, it takes a big, you wouldn't have the same savings going out alone. You would have to bring probably a group.
And if you look at our medical loss ratio, so
Yeah.
what we're pulling on our insurance, we wouldn't get great rates on our own.
Yeah.
Like if we went by ourselves to a different, provider, our rates would probably actually go up just based on, because they're gonna do their actuarials as well, and they're gonna look at our usage.
Yeah.
So not to jump back, but number 5 with the notes, it's the anticipated 15% increase. This is the same thing we got blindsided by last year.
Yeah, that we ended up having to raise.
Yes.
Yeah.
So last year, we had budgeted 10% because historically, the band had not been above
Right.
9% for 13 years.
So we're
Right.
buffering
We're
ourselves
hedging our
there.
bets.
Yeah, hedging
And then
bets, yeah.
if it comes back at the end of March and they say the band caps at 8, then we will come back to these
Yeah.
lines, for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. They like to come down rather than go up.
Right.
That was not a fun
Right.
conversation last year. so.
No.
I just wanted to clarify that was the same thing that
Yeah, you're exactly right.
we had run
Yeah.
into.
Yep.
It is.
Yep, and you'll see that, everywhere there's people, you'll see that
Mhm.
in the budget. Yep. So just finishing up at Carrie Ricker, line 27, the dues and fees memberships. Any school that has elected to do Share Center, that's where you'll see the Share Center membership cost there. And then line 28, last year we had a lot of conversation about grade level field trips, money went out, money came back in. So we kept the money in because it was at the request of the board last year that we put that back in. And I think our administrators are grateful for that and probably have some great plans or have already utilized those funds this year for some great field trip experiences. So that totals the Carrie Ricker in the version of the budget that's being presented to you as Sabatis Primary Open. So if you look at the black bars that go across, and then the subtotal, you'll see the total amount for Carrie Ricker, regular instruction, and the difference in budget year to year. Any questions before we move on to the middle school?
I'm just gonna ask, because I know it's going to be asked, with the copier lease, people are gonna wanna know number of copiers in each building.
Yeah, and somebody did ask that, so I can get that.
Yeah, we'll get that for next time.
Okay.
We'll go over that next time.
And keep in mind, it's not just copiers, there are like office printers, so for folks that.
Confidentiality.
Yes, confidentiality, need their own printer, those are in there as well.
I think
So
we
start.
had that in one of our finance and facilities, isn't that where
did.
that discussion was?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
with
the
the
new
contract.
lease that we went to, we actually reduced the number of machines district-wide by 11, I think
Yeah.
was the number we went down.
I'm sure I have the paperwork at home.
In your
Yeah.
folder. So starting with line 29, that's where we start to look at Oak Hill Middle School. So all of those are accounts end in the 3-digit code 030. Again, this is regular instruction. So from line 29 to line 50, those are your personnel, salary, and benefit related lines. So if we start with line 29, that's your teacher salary line for regular instruction at the middle school. So currently there are 24 full-time equivalent staff in that salary line. This was another substitute line that we did not feel we needed to increase going into next year, even with the increased rate. And then line 31 are the school-based stipends, team leaders, mentors, certification reps. I have a note to get the number of those stipends per line. This is also where we keep a little bit of money to pay out our teacher retirements at the end of the fiscal year. And then line 33, that's your health insurance line with the same note there, so you can see that particular line went up quite a bit for the middle school elective changes. And then going all the way down through, again, line 46, that is the PFML for substitutes. And then starting with line 51, those are your discretionary lines for the middle school for regular instruction. So again, if you're wondering what like repair and maintenance is at the instructional level, if the school laminator is kept in the teacher's lounge, there's usually a payment for the maintenance agreement for that laminator. If, like at the middle school and the high school, there is equipment, like physical education equipment, music equipment, different things like that, you might have a repair cost associated with tuning a piano or, getting a machine calibrated, etc. And then if you look at line 53, there's your copier lease again, so an adjustment of $6,500 there for that lease payment. And then a modest decrease to the supplies, a significant increase, I would say, in books and periodicals, and a little bit of money in there for the Share Center. So remember that the middle school doesn't qualify for a small school membership for Share Center, so what they pay for Share Center is a little bit higher. And membership fees for some UA staff that were requested. And then line 59 is your grade level field trips with a modest increase over last year.
You had a reduction in books and
Yeah, you said.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm sorry.
Decrease.
Significant decrease is what I meant, yeah, I'm
Just
sorry.
wanna make sure.
Thank you. Thank
So
you
how
for
come
that.
You're welcome.
retirement is in the middle school cost center, but I didn't see it in Carrie Ricker? Is
It's
it
just.
It's actual if there's teachers that are.
Yeah, because it's hard to predict who's going to, so I think that's one of the things that I inherited when I, came on and took on the software accounting system, is that's just historically where it had been budgeted and where it lives for all of the teachers. Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah, interesting, right?
I don't know.
Yeah. Questions on the middle school? All right. So starting with line 60 is the current Libby Tozier. So one thing that's unique about Libby Tozier is that by the standards of the DOE coding, there is a different program code for like little kid education and pre-K education. So you'll see that second set of numbers, 1120. That is where you'll see the cost for kindergarten at Libby Tozier, and then shortly thereafter you'll see 1121 as a program code, and that's pre-K. So for line 60, you're looking at the salary line for kindergarten teachers at Libby Tozier with some staff changes. You see a small reduction in that compared to last year's budget. And for the FTEs, we do have 5 kindergarten teachers, but remember the 3 primary schools split the UA, so that 6th FTE is a third of each of the UA teachers. We do have a kindergarten ed tech, so that is represented in line 61. And you'll see this is one of the substitute lines that was actually adjusted down based on actuals. Line 63 is your school-based stipends, like we've discussed. A couple of health insurance lines because we have a teacher and ed tech staff represented in that cluster of accounts. And then if you go down to line 86, that's where the discretionary lines for kindergarten start. And line 88 is your copier lease increase, and then you'll see some decreases for supplies, books and periodicals, audiovisual. You will see a request for 1 kindergarten whiteboard table that Jan mentioned, so that's noted there, and grade level field trips. So that's a portion of Libby Tozier. If you look at the next cluster of accounts, it's specific to pre-K. So line 96 represents 2 full-time equivalent teachers in pre-K, and we have 2 full-time ed techs in pre-K as well, represented in line 97. They're related deductions and benefit lines after that. I know, right? I'm trying to see if I'm flipping the right way.
Yeah.
And then the pre-K staff have a supplies, books and periodicals, and furniture line. So in the past, another, why, how come, not sure. There wasn't separate lines for pre-K, there was just a supply line. So you'll see the books and periodicals and furniture was never parsed out. You'll see zeros all the way up until this year. But just trying to make sure all our staff felt like they had access to any discretionary line if they wanted to put a request in. We built those lines out for them so that they could be tracked and could be accessed. Right, and then you'll see Libby Tozier has a subtotal for kindergarten and pre-K, and then a total for Cost Center 1 for that building. Questions on Libby Tozier? All right, you're doing great. We only have a couple groups left to go. So what we have left to cover is Sabattis Primary, the high school, and then some of the specific programs like GT, alternative ed, etc. So for Sabattis Primary, right now, starting with line 14, you have 11 full-time staff members at Sabattis Primary in your regular instruction lines. And then the substitute line there was actually increased compared to actuals and after our review. The same 116 school-based stipend line. And then your related staff deductions and benefit lines. And then looking at the Sabattis Primary discretionary lines, modest decrease to the supplies, an increase in the books and periodicals request, and a consistent share center and grade level field trips request. Questions about that? So before we move away from Sabattis Primary, what you'll see when we look at the closed version is all of those lines zeroed out for this year. And then you'll see them moved to where the staff are settling in that version. So beginning with line 140, that's the high school lines. So in the salary line, you have 29 full-time equivalents in that teacher line. The substitute line there was modestly increased And there are quite a number more school-based stipends at the high school than at the other buildings. In line 142. And then moving past those deductions and benefit lines, looking at 159, there's a note there, just explaining what we talked about before, that professional development for our staff is moving centralized into Cost Center 5 and the improvement of instruction. Line 160 represents our contract with Jobs for Maine graduates, which is an exceptional program, and we're really fortunate to participate in that. So that dollar amount buys us a full-time staff member through that program, which does some really incredible things in the school and with our community. I know Marco and Mel have had a long-standing partnership with that program and are really positive allies with them. So repair and maintenance, again, you'll see this line at the high school is higher than some of the other school buildings where most schools are paying for like their laminator contract. There's a lot of other tangible equipment and things that are used at the high school, you know, the microscopes, music equipment, et cetera, that needs repair and maintenance. The supply line is up at the high school. Cost of materials and additional requests that have increased. Books and periodicals is down modestly. The equipment line, line 167 was zeroed out this year because we've given some substantial attention to equipment needs at the high school and have also been the recipient of some really incredible grant funds that have supported increased equipment within the PE department that has been widely used. The request that Marco noted for a classroom set of desks is in line 168, desks and chairs. And then professional dues for staff at the high school is in line 169. And some additional funds added for science and phys ed field trips in line 170. Historically, the high school hasn't budgeted for field trips. Mel has been great about pursuing MELMAC grants for college trips and things of that nature, but as different grant funding is not available anymore, I think the teachers were looking for some funds available for, you know, hands-on learning like we're supporting some of the lower grade levels with as well. Questions about any of the high school lines or total, Christy?
So 169, the professional dues for staff. I know somebody's gonna ask, what does it mean? Like, what's the return on investment for students?
Yeah. So many of the high school staff are more specific in their area of expertise, and so a lot of those dues and fees are to pay for their professional memberships to like an English association, Teachers of English, or Teachers of Math, Science Association. And the benefit, I would think, is that when you become a member, you also get professional development and other resources at reduced rates. I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
No, I mean, that's exactly what I would say, yeah.
No.
Yeah, Doug?
Does this also cover the teachers that are partnered with the colleges for the dual enrollment?
Yes, so our classroom teachers that are teaching dual enrollment would be in this cost center, regular
So
instruction.
it's also going to that, right? So
I'm not sure.
certifying the,
They don't need to be certified.
oh, they don't need to
There's
be
no
certified?
cost.
There's no cost?
There's no cost involved in that partnership.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah,
This
it's
is
more
more
like the teachers
membership.
apply and are vetted through the college. Are you approved to teach the class? And then if they are, then we're able to offer that dual enrollment as long as that teacher is teaching it.
Okay, just trying to connect costs if we
Yeah,
can, but
yeah.
there's no certification cost with that or anything.
We
So that's
did-
even better for the colleges then. That says a lot about them if they're, and the teachers.
There is sometimes a cost for AP, we have like a teacher who did request to travel to get a professional development to support the AP, and we did not put that in the budget. It was a request, but we did not.
Teresa?
How many teachers are dual credit at the high school?
Well, each one that's listed for, on that, well, we talked about it earlier, I can look and see, I
Yeah.
can tell you.
We'll let them count well.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it's 8 or 9.
Yeah, it looks like 8 on the sheet.
Yeah.
Do you know why the Jobs for Maine contract, like, went like that, like
Yeah.
28 to under 5, back up to 28?
Yes, I do know
We
why.
paid.
So in previous years, that had been paid forward, that contract. And then the auditors told us, nope, it's in this fiscal year, so you can't do that. So we ended up like skipping a year. So when we knew we didn't have to pay for it, we took it out of the budget. And then it went back up when we kind of got back on cycle. Makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's an
thank you.
annual contract and it has a start and end date. And the auditors are just nitpicky sometimes over things, so, yeah.
So Sam, where in the, is it in the equipment line for like, you know, like recertifying football equipment, helmets and all that?
Yeah, so that would be in your cost center 4, under like the athletic
Okay,
budget.
all right, yeah, so we'll
So
get there.
You'll
yeah.
get there,
Yep.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll see that.
Are we covering the costs of AP exams? Is that built into this cost
Yes.
center?
Not in this cost center, there are 9 teachers, there would probably be student support. So, yeah, the AP, we put that back in last year.
I thought we did, but I couldn't.
Cost center
Yeah.
5.
We did,
Yeah.
cost center 5,
Yeah.
Other instruction?
yeah.
No,
No,
staff
the
and students, it'll come up in
student
guidance.
support,
Yeah.
guidance,
Staff and
the
student
end of the
support.
guidance, yeah, you'll see it under guidance.
Other questions about the high school?
Do we think $1,100 is enough for field trips if we don't get any access to funds? Or any access?
I'm not sure what they're planning, so.
Marco.
Yeah, so, Nicole, just one of the things that we keep in mind is that, or to keep in mind with that is that $1,100 really is about any cost associated with like admittance to a field trip. So the district's gracious enough to allow us to go on field trips to different places, but if there's a cost associated with it, meaning like admission or for programming or something along those lines, that's what that $1,100 is for.
Do we think it's enough?
I do, yeah, I mean, I will say that if the science and, I'm sorry, what was the other department?
Phys ed.
Phys ed department feels that that's enough, I feel that it's enough for those 2 departments.
Well, I think too, like high school is a little different too because different clubs go different places and things. So it's not,
They do.
it's not like this grade all has to go to a place.
It's different.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
it's really kind
They
of,
do a lot of fundraising for,
right.
yeah.
Right, and you've heard Tim come and talk about a lot of his field
Yeah.
trips that he does and stuff. He's really great about finding things that are no cost or free admission, and then it's just getting the kids there and back.
I just wanted to make sure that with the limitation
Yeah,
with
great question.
No.
Yeah.
funds and access to grants
Yep.
right now, that we still
Yeah.
have our,
Keep
enough
an
for
eye
our
on
kids.
it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great question.
8th graders did a class trip. I don't know when they get, I think I've seen like older grades do a lot of fundraising for different senior stuff,
Project
but
Fund.
yeah,
Yeah,
there we
do-
go.
We have a senior class trip.
I don't know why you asked me for it.
My question was, I guess the higher elementary up, do they do, or middle school up, I'm sorry, do yearly class trips anywhere? Like, my own experience, every year we did something different, like we went to DC for 7th grade, I think 6th grade we went to, is it Ferry Beach? I just,
In this
my kids
district?
aren't there yet, so I don't know.
Yeah.
Did you go to this district?
No.
So Michaela, do you want to
I'm
talk
not from
about field
around here.
trips at the middle school? He's asking about field trips at the middle school. What is planned for the middle school?
So we're in the midst of planning it. We do want to get to that point. I don't think we were at that point before of, we have, like, someone coming in for science, Miss Cami is her name, and she usually does like the fish release. So she's doing that with 5th grade, but we do want to have every grade level to have a trip to be able to go to. That's not including the 8th grade trip that they all have. So it'd be like 8th grade would still get a regular trip too, in addition to their 8th grade trip.
So there is a budget for field trips at the middle school.
But we had to just look at, how much money we had for field trips to be able to do that.
Any other questions on high school? Okay, So beyond the high school, we have some district-wide programming, which also falls under Cost Center 1. So the first program is to have our students who are multilingual students have support with staff. So what you'll see here, starting with line 171, what we are currently advertising and hoping to have based on our student needs is a teacher, a multilingual teacher, right? What we budgeted for last year, because our student needs were different at that time, was an ed tech, right? So you'll see a fluctuation in line 171 and 172, so there's no longer a budget for an ed tech, but there is a budget for a professional staff member, a teaching staff member. So those associated salary and benefit lines have been shifted over to a teacher position and are more in line with the benefits available to a teacher rather than a support staff member.
What's the number of student needs for this one?
You want to give the update?
Sure, so right now we have 2 elementary students. We have 4, 5, 7 students at the high school. We just received a couple of students, a new family arrived from Turkey right before vacation. They also have a middle school student. So what happens is all of those students take the screener, and if their English proficiency levels are below 4.5, then they're supposed to receive instruction, daily instruction from a certified ML teacher, which is why we put it in the budget, because our newcomers are, not scoring near 4.5 and should be receiving that instruction. So the person, that one teacher would be responsible for all the students in the district.
And they would have to go school to school
Yeah.
because they're all different schools.
Yes,
Exactly.
exactly.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yeah, and Shelley's been really creative this year where we haven't been able to fill that position, where it was kind of posted midway through the year. She's reached out and worked with, our high school administration and Lewiston, I think, and some other
Our 4
partnerships
boys
to
are
try
going
to
to
meet needs.
Lewiston every other day for
and
English
that's a
classes
great
now.
success.
So we're doing all we can.
Thinking outside the box. And we
So-
do have a part-time ed tech 3 that does work with students.
And it's listed K-8, is it really K-12?
Yeah, I think it is K-12, but for coding purposes, 950, if you look at the last 3 numbers, is K-8, and 990 is K-12. So when we have district-wide programs, rather than splitting them all over the place, sometimes we just choose a place to, and you'll see that with gifted and talented too. So we choose, either where the service predominantly provided or, I think that's probably was it predominantly provided. So moving beyond the multilingual, 4,900 is gifted and talented. So we do have a cluster of codes for K-8, and then we have a cluster of codes for gifted and talented that are high school. So starting with the K-8, that's where our staffing costs are located. So you'll see that we have 1 full-time teacher for GT and then 1 full-time ed tech for GT. And then going down through line 200, all of the related benefits and deduction lines for those personnel carry through. And then starting with line 201, there is a request for some, specific PD for GT in line 201, and then also some specific instructional software, and then a conference for gifted and talented and travel associated with that, and then a little bit of decrease in the supplies, books, and periodicals requests for that program for the little K-8.
Do we have a number of students served for GT that you could share with us at some point? And then,
I can get the numbers for you.
That'd be awesome.
It's generally at around 5% of the student population, but it fluctuates, so I'd have to find the right list, so.
and then the GT arts program, how is that salary?
Same, there's not additional staff, so those 2 staff members, so like Ruth, who is our teacher, coordinates the offerings, and usually in the elementary grades and all the way up through, the instruction is provided by teachers who are in your regular instruction lines.
Are they stipend to do that?
No, it's just part of their teaching schedule.
Okay.
Any other questions on the K-8 gifted and talented? Okay, just a couple more. So next is alternative ed, so the 4200 program. So that is located at the high school, and there is one full-time teacher in that program. And then there are some supplies and other discretionary lines associated with alternative education at the high school. Not much notable there, apart from what we've talked about. And last but not least, for gifted and talented at the high school level, 912, so the code's ending in 990. All of the staff, remember, is paid for in the 950 lines, but there are high school specific supplies, tuition, and books and periodicals. So the tuition line 223, is our cost that we pay to provide students with AVEC classes, or AVEC experiences. And then supplies and books and periodicals are down a little bit to support some students. I think you said, Shelley, books and periodicals might be to support an AP student or someone who is
Yeah,
pursuing.
sometimes for AP test prep materials.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
That takes us to the end of Cost Center 1 with SPS Open. So before you panic that we're going to go through all of that again, again, we've noted that the difference in the budget for Cost Center 1 with SPS Open and SPS Closed is very de minimis, right? So all I wanted to do was just talk through how things move around in the closed version, right? So if you can find your SPS codes, right? So those are the codes that end in 130. You'll just know that those are zeroed out. Okay? So you'll see that on page 8. And you'll notice the budget total is zeroed out for all of those lines, right? Because everything that we've planned to spend has moved to a different home. Okay? You'll also note that the pre-K lines at Libby Tozier are zeroed out because that's moving to Carrie Ricker. And there are new sets of lines built at Carrie Ricker for our second grade teachers and our pre-K teachers, right? And so everyone has moved and now lives where they are going to live if SPS closes and the vote is affirmative for the closure on the 8th. So we've been over everything that's in there, it's just in a different spot.
I did make one change on the PowerPoint, so that will be changed, is the Dean of Students for the middle school is in Cost Center 1.
Okay.
Okay? So if SPS closes, the Dean of Students for Carrie Ricker would be in here. So I put that on their Dean of Student position because it's based on a teacher but teacher year, school year, and the salary is based on that. That lives in Cost Center 1. So if you start counting like who represents the dean is there, so I added that to the PowerPoint in the students. All right, so you want to go over next week we'll be back at 5:30.
Next week we'll be back at 5:30.
Yeah, and it will just be workshop to continue on the next Cost Center.
Straight workshop.
May I just ask to go over the action items, just to make sure I didn't miss any? So there was a request to generate summer school expenses prior to COVID.
Oh, yes.
Yep. To list out the number of stipends per line. And there are other stipend lines like athletic, co-curricular, so would you like that for the other? Okay. Okay. To spell out any acronyms that are in the comments. Okay. If I miss one, don't try to find them. The number of copiers per building, and then Shelley will get the number of GT students served. Any other data requests that came forward?
I don't think so. So next week is it cost center 2, and we're just gonna do
There's several cost centers.
Okay, so we'll be hitting a few.
Yeah, I'll pull it up on budget page.
I want to say it's 2 through 7.
Yeah.
Oh, wow, okay. So this
There's
was
a
our,
lot. This is a big, tonight's was a big one, I mean, they're all big, but, on the 5th, yeah, we're doing 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're smaller, they're special education, the career and technical, which you already know, because we've already gone over that one. And then you have other instructional, which is the athletics, and co-curricular, and then staff and student support, which is, you know, your guidance, technology. Then cost center 8, system administration, and then cost center 7, school administration.
And I'll try to get all of the detailed reports like this prepped as soon as I can and like in a shared folder to share with you before if you want to look at them before. So I'll try to get that going as quickly as possible.
okay.
Is this,
Thank you, everyone.
the 2 pager that you gave us, is this kind of the whole package?
That's the whole package, and we're not discussing that until
The
end.
end, but that can give us a
You got a
sense of where we
ballpark of where we
Okay.
are. Yeah.
Teresa, that was the answer.
So we are,
Yeah.
we did have, it is a special meeting, not just the budget workshop, so I do want to, I think we didn't put board comments.
That's because I only, it's a special meeting.
Yeah.
I took out other agenda.
Yeah, I just wanna give it a few minutes, if anybody does have any board comments, just in case.
Well, thank you to our administrators and
Yeah,
to Sam and all of our teachers and staff for really being so thoughtful
That's what I was
to
gonna say.
get us there.
Great job.
Yeah, this has been great.
You have to sign, you have a lot of papers to sign before you leave.
No skedaddling until we're done, signing paperwork, next week, budget workshop 5:30. Without objection, I adjourn the meeting. 8:07.
Do I don't fax them over here.
That's where I am.
Sharon said we can.
I didn't vote on it, but.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, there's no way.